Well, on this episode of the Presbyterian and Reformed Churchman, I have two brothers on here who have been on P&R Churchman before, Rick Hutton and Charlie Nate, both ruling elders in the PCA. This is an episode we're going to be talking about more in the PCA, which helps ruling elders and smaller churches get to General Assembly and also host some very cool events. And so let me introduce you guys, or let you introduce yourselves. Charlie, remind us where you are, what church you're in, and what you do.
Okay, I'm a ruling elder. I'm at Harvestwood Covenant here in Floyd, Virginia. I am also on the temporary session at a church plant in Salem, just down the road, and I'm an attorney in Roanoke, Virginia.
Okay, yes, attorney. I think there's more attorney ruling elders than any other profession of REs.
We are a blessing to the PCA.
I like how straight faced you are on so many things. Then you crack the smile, and then I love that.
Yeah, it's helpful in court.
Yeah. So how far are you from Richmond and where General Assembly is? Are you as part of one of these presbyteries?
Well, we are cooperating with other presbyteries to help put this General Assembly on, but we're a good 3-hour drive from Richmond, and
Okay.
there are other churches that are 3 hours away from us in our presbytery, but not in that direction.
Which direction are you?
We are west of
Okay.
Richmond.
All right. Do you qualify as Richmond, north of Richmond?
No,
No.
we're west and south, and I'm closer to Kentucky than I am to Washington D.C. So.
Yeah. Okay. Rick Hutton, tell us again. You were just on actually an episode because you were on the host committee for General Assembly this year. You're close by. You're part of the presbytery, that's the James River Presbytery. Remind us again what church you're at, what your role is.
I'm at All Saints Reformed Presbyterian in downtown Richmond. And I live just a few blocks from the church. So both the church and myself are about 3 miles from the convention center. So we're one of not the closest church, but one of the closest churches to the convention center this summer. I'm serving on the host committee and then also on the committee putting together the first worship service. And I serve, my career was in IT, but then since 2016, I've been the full-time church administrator at All Saints. So, and ruling elder there at All Saints.
That's right. Well, okay, so you're both in Virginia, which just happens to be Providence, or I was going to say coincidence, but we don't believe in that. But anyhow, Charlie, you are the founder of More in the PCA, and you're the director of it, I assume. Why don't you explain that to us a little bit? What More is, how it got started. Remind us again. I know we talked about this a year ago, but as General Assembly approaches, I want our whoever's listening, but ruling elders in particular, to be aware of this organization and how they can serve the church and how we can help you.
Sure. I became a ruling elder in 2016, I believe, late 2016. And I went to my first General Assembly right off the bat in 2017. And I saw that ruling elders were outnumbered by teaching elders by about 4-1. And I was thinking about all the reasons why I had hurdles to jump over to get to General Assembly, and wondering what other hurdles other ruling elders might be facing. And I work with nonprofits. My main practice area is helping nonprofits comply with fundraising regulation. And so I thought that if one of the problems was money, because it's an expensive proposition to go to General Assembly, then you could create a nonprofit that would be able to collect money from concerned donors and then disperse it to ruling elders who would need it, and that would address at least one of the hurdles that people have to jump over to get to General Assembly. So I just went ahead and did that, since it's the kind of thing I do all the time, and we've been helping ruling elders ever since. We started off really small in 2018. We just were able to help 2 ruling elders. In 2019, we helped 5. And then 2020, there was no General Assembly because of COVID. But with this upsurge of interest, I think because of Revoice in 2021, we were able to help 49 elders. And in 2022, we helped 37. In 2023, we helped 40. And I think we've part of our mission is to inspire elders to do this on their own without financial assistance, and to convince their churches to budget some money so that the ruling elder can go to Presbyterian General Assembly. And we've also started doing these events at General Assembly so that ruling elders can network with each other and be able to look forward to seeing old friends at the next General Assembly, so that they'll become familiar with the courts of the church and be more willing to take on a committee assignment or serve on a commission.
Okay, so it was born out of a heart to want to see more participation of ruling elders at General Assembly, hence the name. And one thing that I've liked that you've highlighted is, like, you don't want to just get people there, but you want people. Do you want the ruling elders to be involved? And I think the last couple of years, one way you've done that was try to foster some more community around ruling elders. And I've found in talking to different ruling elders around the denomination, like what often happens is teaching elders, they have old seminary friends and old friends from churches and presbyteries where they may have been before, and then they transferred in. And I know myself. I mean, I have tons of people. It's like a homecoming when I go to General Assembly. But ruling elders, again, we have a session of 10 guys here. We can only send 2. So they may not have those connections. They don't have those connections, and so y'all have hosted a get together, an evening get together, the last 2 years. How did that come about?
Well, we started doing that in St. Louis in 2021, and it was just us. And it very low budget. There was a podcast being recorded in the corner and everything, but it was a really great time, and it was something where the ruling elders really didn't have anything else to do because there was so many other seminary and other networking things for teaching elders going on. But in 2022, we partnered with the Ruling Elder Network, and they helped us get the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame, or College Sports Hall of Fame, and that was just a blockbuster event. And we decided to uh, kind of make that our thing going forward, because so many relationships were born and strengthened there, and we see ruling elders, you know, uh, getting more involved, and that's been the goal all along.
Right. And so, Rick, how did you get involved with Charlie, or with this? I know you're kind of there helping this year on some things. Like, how did you get involved?
Well, I learned about More fairly early on in its existence because of the conferences that I would go to just for my own spiritual development. More would have a table there, and so I learned about them. My engagement with them really started that 2 years ago in Birmingham. I was at that reception, and then again last year in Memphis, was at the dinner, and just found it extremely beneficial for myself for all those things that Charlie was saying, and tried to take it to heart. I tried to put myself out there at those and go around and meet people and shake hands and try to develop some relationships. So I was trying to do what Charlie was encouraging us to do. And so then when the General Assembly came to Richmond, I reached out to Charlie and said, "Hey, let me help. I can help. Let me help you find a place, and let's work on this together."
So you reached out to him.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I would encourage. They still haven't, as far as I know, still haven't announced the next location. Where we're going in 2025 for GA. But when that's found out, if you're a ruling elder in that city, I would encourage you to do the same. Reach out to Charlie and say, "How can I help?"
Ah,
And
that,
Yes, we
yeah, that's
definitely
great.
need
That's
it.
great. And so he's a ruling elder in the presbytery where GA is happening. And so he contacts you, which is kind of neat, to say, hey, how can I help? And so we understand y'all are working on some kind of gathering for ruling elders general assembly. And just to tie that back in, like, it is helpful that REs go, like what I witnessed in the ones I was there, because I had to sneak in as a teaching elder both years. And thank you for not throwing me out. But
Yeah, we don't need to charge you extra or nothing.
I know. So hey, I'm a friend to ruling elders, right? So,
Yes, that's all we
so
ask.
I know. So like I've seen REs interacting online, like on on Facebook in the RE groups or even on Twitter, and then they end, your venue provides a place where they actually meet in person. So I saw a few meetings. Oh, you're the you're so and so, and it does provide a little bit of that taste that the TEs have when they go to General Assembly, which makes the whole thing that much more enjoyable. Um, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, it really does. It makes you want to come back.
Mm. It makes you feel wanted, like you're a part of it. You are a part of it, you
Hmm.
know. So let's let's talk about this year. How many scholarships do you think you're going to give out this year? Do you have any clue?
I think it's probably going to be in the 40 to 50 range. I think there's a lot of need out there, um, and people need to know about it. People, I think churches that can afford it need to start budgeting for it, and then churches that can't afford it at all need to start thinking outside the box, contacting us, and getting some ruling elders over to General Assembly. Like Harvestwood, where I serve right now, we haven't sent anyone to General Assembly in decades. It's been forever, and so it's just been outside of their realm of possibility. But now, more in the PCA's making it more thinkable for them, and people can help out by going to, if you're a ruling elder, start going to presbytery, start going to General Assembly. If you need help financially, please file an application. But if you're not one of those people, we could use money. We're going to start our first ever fundraising drive this year, and you can help out at moreinthepca.org. Go to the apply button. I'm sorry, go to the donate button or the give button, and you can give straight through the computer or your phone. And it's a real blessing to these ruling elders. In normal years, and especially since we were able to get the ruling elder registration fee reduced to $300, it only costs about $850 to sponsor a ruling elder, which is a lot to some people, especially at a small rural church. But if you're at a big suburban church and you want to amplify the voice of your brothers and sisters out in a more rural area, or a less ex-urban area, I guess, uh, that's a way you can do that.
Right. And so I was wondering that. So the ruling elder fee is $300 now, and the way you have it set up is kind of neat, where they can click off an amount to donate, or I'm going to pay for the registration fee for one ruling elder or the lodging for one ruling elder. So basically, you're saying on average you give out about $800 to applicants.
Yeah, yeah. Some people need help with travel expenses. Some people don't need help with lodging. It varies from elder to elder, but on average, it's about 850 for us to send an elder to General Assembly.
Yeah. So here's an idea for churches that do have money in the budget for General Assembly. Like if you have an extra $1,000 in there, and you might want to help out more in the PCA. You want to help other ruling elders in other churches who wouldn't otherwise be able to go. If your church this year isn't sending a ruling elder, and that happens, you number of ruling elders, obviously ruling elders have jobs. Not everybody's retired and doesn't have the freedom to flexibility to go. So many churches don't send even one ruling elder, but if you've budgeted for it, maybe you'd like to help send a ruling elder, and you can give to more in the PCA, and they'll make sure that that ruling elders are represented, which is what we want, and it can only help the denomination overall. How do you answer critics who said, like, I saw it once, one prominent pastor put online about packing the court or something when they see more ruling elders than normal at a general assembly.
Well, at the first General Assembly, it was about a 50-50 split. So I think that's normal. And if we're Presbyterian and we believe in the equality of elders, that a 50-50 split is aspirational. It's something that we should work towards. And, you know, court packing is, it's kind of a slur. I don't get it. I don't
As
think
if we
that's
know how people are going to vote, right?
right. We talk to a lot of our elders that we help, and we're mostly interested in, like, why isn't your church budgeted this? Because uh, there are a lot of small rural churches in the PCA who just do not have the resources uh, to make this happen, to keep the PCA grassroots, to keep the PCA Presbyterian, and that's really the focus. And we're not without enough ruling elders. Um, Unfortunately, the the denomination can devolve into a certain kind of groupthink that may get overly academic, that may get a little too out of touch with the real lives of the people in the pews, and a little more focused on ivory tower concerns, and that's just not a great direction for the PCA.
Yeah, well, Dr. Robertson speaks about that quite frequently. Like he says, us TEs have no sense at all, but you ruling elders have common sense, and we we need you. Um, but yeah, I mean, when that tweet came out that you obviously didn't see, you're not on Twitter, or whatever, about like court packing because one year had more ruling elders than normal. It's like, no, everybody that was there was allowed to be there, and I mean, more wasn't mentioned in that, by the way. I'm just saying, in general, there's somebody there seemed to be this suspicion if more ruling elders show up than normal. But I like your aspiration of 50%, and I think I'm sympathetic to the smaller churches that, like, because I know churches that the senior pastor or the solo pastor chooses not to go to General Assembly because they don't want to spend the budget money. So how much more then, you're talking about in that church, they're not going to spend the money for one person, let alone three. And I think the PCA, AC, or GA website even offers some scholarships for, I don't know if it's ruling elders or teaching elders, but I've seen places on there where if you're under a certain budget for your church or whatever, you can do that.
The only thing I would
Yeah.
I would add, George,
Yeah.
is that I've run into churches that could afford to send their ruling elders, um, but they don't have a line item in the budget for General Assembly.
Hmm.
They just they give the pastor his expense account big enough
Oh,
for him to go to the General Assembly. And so whenever I've seen that, I've always encouraged the pastor to work towards getting that out of his, pull that money out of his line item for general expenses and make it a General Assembly travel or General Assembly expenses on its own. And then try to get it up big enough to host the ruling elders as well. Um, and we've had that from day one at All Saints. The General Assembly travel was a separate line item from the pastoral expenses. Rolling it into the pastoral expenses implies it's just the pastor's job to go.
oh, that's good. Yeah. So how much would you recommend churches to budget per person to send?
It's really, it's going to vary from year to year depending on how close you are to the General Assembly. Like George, you were saying you'd probably drive this year, which makes it cheaper than if you got to buy 3 plane tickets to go to Missouri or California. And so it can vary from year to year. George's figure of 850. I mean, I'm sorry, Charlie's figure of 850. That'll get you your room and your registration, but then you're eating out for 4 or 5 days. So we usually are somewhere in the and then that would your 850 cover travel as well, George, or is that just room and registration?
It usually, some people it does cover travel, and it all works. This is all an average. So some people have, very few people get assistance with all three areas, with
Yeah.
lodging, registration fee, and travel.
So we usually budget around 1,500 to 2,000, depending on where it's going to be that year per person.
I think that's the real cost for a teaching elder, and with the ruling elder reduction, it's more like 1,200.
It makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. So like our ticket for a TE is 525, and then we have to have gas to get there. In the past, we've rented cars and driven because there was three of us going or something, but that's a car rental fee as opposed to a flight, and so you factor that in, and then the hotel room, and then I'm glad you brought up the meals because the churches ought to be paying for the meals also. You don't often have a choice on where and what you're going to eat because you're often find yourself in a situation where you're with a group that ends up somewhere, and you have to try to rush back to the assembly hall for the next vote, and it is just what it is. And so I think the church, our book of church order says this too, right? For the churches to be paying for their elders to go, does it not?
Yes.
Do you know where?
I
I'm gonna see if I can pull it up.
Yeah, I thought that the BCO, I heard a legend, may not be true. I don't have the citation, but I thought the BCO provided that the presbyteries paid for the TEs to go, and so the churches could pay for the REs to
Yeah. Well, I think if you when you find it, George, it's going to say that
go.
the sending court is supposed to pay. It's not as specific as what you just said, Charlie, but it's the sending
Mhm.
court that's supposed to pay, which would logically lead to your thing, Charlie. Yes, that the presbytery is the sending court if that's where their membership is.
Right.
Well, that's fascinating. Just because now we're on a total tangent, but I know of a clerk of presbytery who's a friend of mine who's a seminary professor, so he doesn't have a call at a church, and he's not going. He didn't bring up the money situation, but I'm sure that's part of it. He's not, the seminary's not going to pay for him. But I said, well, you need to have the presbytery pay for you. You're the clerk of the presbytery. You ought to be at General Assembly. All right, so you said 10-6. The
Yes.
expenses of ministers and ruling elders. Charlie, where'd you go? And ruling elders in their attendance on the court shall be defrayed by the bodies which they respectively represent. Charlie, you're back. You see that? The
I do.
10-6.
10-6.
Put that on your website.
That's right.
The expenses of ministers and ruling elders in their attendance on the court shall be defrayed by the bodies which they respectively represent. And so, yeah, there's Rick, the administrator, telling us to make sure we're budgeting for it and not simply under a pastor's line item, but maybe under a session line item. And that way, look, once it's in your budget, you expect it to be there. And for those of you that do have it budgeted, if you don't anticipate spending all the money in there because this year it's within driving distance or whatever reason, let's maybe you can consider helping out sister church in the PCA to send
Sure.
some brothers
And I,
there.
I will note that the word shall is used, and that suggests the imperative.
There's the lawyer in you. So I had the administrator tell us how to budget for it, and I have the lawyer there telling us the legal way to read this. And so let's yes.
Take
Very
it to
good.
heart. Live it, learn it, love it.
There you go. Well, we have had, I don't know if it's going to come out in the final editing version of this because we've had tons of technical difficulties, but we are all here. And so, what are some things you're looking forward to this General Assembly? Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, the uh, uh, just kind of reiterating the more thing. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody again. I've been around long enough now that I have friends. Uh, as you know, we've run an internship program out of the church, and so we've sent pastors all across the country, and I get to see these guys that were my interns. And I know last year, I think Second Pres out of Greenville is similar, and they had an intern reunion dinner where they had like 40 people or something. So I look forward to the day when little All Saints can do that sort of thing.
That is awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Good word. What about you, Charlie? What are you looking forward to for this GA?
Well, I'm like Rick, looking forward to seeing friends and serving on committees, but I feel like there's been a grassroots resurgence in the PCA, and through this time, especially over the last 3 years, we've repopulated a lot of the committees, and we're changing the direction of the denomination, and I think it's heading in a more biblical direction, which is to me the whole point of being in the PCA. Having come out of the PCUSA, I there's a whole lot of reasons why we want to be in the PCA and stick with the Bible and the BCO, and this would be another year to build the health and the healthy immune system of the denomination by making sure we've got solid Bible-minded men in our committees.
Oh, that's a good word. And I think that's what one important thing is. It could be perceived that there's no current crisis or controversy in the PCA. And so maybe this is a GA to miss. And, we want to just encourage us not to view it that way. There actually is a number of interesting overtures on there. They're not all like these flashy overtures like in the past, but they're ones that you're going to feel pain from if they go the wrong way. Down the road. And so I think the key to not getting into situations where there is controversy and crisis is to be involved all the time, be involved in peacetime. And so and this, I'm excited about this Presbytery meeting because, well, I learned that there's whitewater kayaking right down below the site, and I will be on the river. Rick, you talk. Okay, I mean the James River. I mean, I've never been to this area. I've never, so I'm excited to be in Richmond, and I'm excited to be with y'all. And I appreciate Rick all the work your committee is doing, and yeah. So any final thoughts?
I look forward to seeing everyone in Richmond. It's going to be a good time. I think there's a lot to celebrate, but there's also a lot to prepare for, and we need to remain eternally vigilant.
Praise God.
And this is part of our calling, whether we're ruling elders or teaching elders. This is being at General Assembly is a part of our calling to the church.
Yeah. Good word. Good word. And so I think we said what needs to be said. We will look forward to hearing about the MORE event at GA as that develops. That's always a highlight. And hopefully I earned my ticket. I usually bring like a bunch, like 5 REs with me, so that should help.
That's always a huge plus.
Yes. I mean, like to the event, Rick, how many REs does your church get? You're larger than us. You get
No. We're small. We're smaller than you. We have a big footprint, but we are only about 120 communicants.
Okay. Wow, you punch a lot higher than your weight. I mean,
yes.
Right. We are going to have you on again to talk about your intern program. I mean, that's even more encouraging to me, Rick, that y'all do all that you're able to do. So praise God for that. I appreciate you both. I've enjoyed getting to be friends with you. I look forward to seeing you in Richmond in June. God bless, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.